Summary of the thesis or main ideas of the book. The thesis aims to gather information about the so little known Battle of Mactan. The accounts on the said event was very limited because almost half was lost from the history. It tackled the battle from the military and battle tactics perspective by consolidating sources to form a justifiable account of what could have actually happened. The book was divided into sections tackling every aspect of warfare, such as both sides' military historiography, tactics, and weapons, the backgrounds of each opposing troops, and even the contextual purpose of battle from that time. The discourse on war started from telling the story of the Battle of Mactan through Antonio Pigafetta's account. It presented a theoretical framework in which the author discussed that the discourse, together with the reality of war, produces perfected reality. Both accounts, discourse and reality, contributes to history as reality speaks from those who experience the war on site, and discourse speaks about observations of the primary account in an unbiased manner. The thesis mainly attacked the thesis mainly tackled the two different conceptions of battle and combat of the indigenous people and Spaniards. They fought differently both in tools and behavior. This interaction was equal to be the reality of war. The author discussed how this reality can evolve according to time along with the discourse on war. However, the two are still of importance and relevance. Author Jose Amiel is the author of the thesis. He is an instructor from Ateneo de Manila University. He is also an advocate of child welfare at DHS Eugene.
First is the Philippine military historiography. The Philippine military historiography was only known through Antonio Pigafetta's account. Through this section, the author tried to rectify the historiography in an unbiased manner by placing the Battle of Mactan in its proper setting. It also compared and contrasted the Battle of Mactan with the other battles the natives fought with the Spaniards. Second, spiritual potency and warfare. This section discussed the governance of each Philippine coastal communities. It mentioned how Philippines used to lack central authority. However, each community valued spiritual potency, which can be seen in good governance. This explained why they offer gifts to their chief. It also mentioned that a chief must partake to a war to show his level of potency. Third is the purpose of battle. The author examined if the Battle of Mactan was accepted by the chiefs to show their level of potency as mentioned from the last section. It also auto-described the behavior of indigenous people as they first saw that they are large in numbers. This section took a glimpse on both possibilities.
Fourth, the combatants. This section determined the social ladder of indigenous people and explained the nature of the warriors. It mentioned that there was no particular title for those who partake in battles. It also looked at accounts on trying to explain if the warriors had any training and what kind of equipment they have used during wars. Fifth, indigenous battle tactics and weapons. In relations to the spiritual potency of a leader, this section revealed that the person with more soul stuff would more likely prevail. It tackled how warriors used to prepare for battle with the use of spiritual power such as meditation and magical charms. It also described the different weapons that warriors could be used such as kampilan, a Philippine sword. Sixth, resolution and aftermath. The author concluded that the warfare was a reflection of the indigenous people's culture. It listed repetitive behavior of the natives toward fighting with the Spaniards. It also mentioned that the natives could not know if they won or not for. They may not share the same definition of victory as we today.
7. The background of Conquistador. To complete the picture, the author described the other opposing troop, the Spaniards. It introduced the backgrounds of Ferdinand Magellan through several accounts and how he was probably led by his material intentions alone. This section also provided details on how salary was distributed among Magellan's troops.
8. The Spanish Discourse on War. This part discusses how Magellan's troops were not trained to be soldiers, but they were ready to fight. However, their lack of capability to take advantage of what they have caused them defeat. 9th. The Battle of Mactan in context. The author stood on claiming that Magellan's defeat was due to his tactical mistakes. However, accounts show that he could have underestimated the indigenous people as he did with his past battles. It could also be the terrain or a breakdown in cohesion as Pigafetta accounted it. It also gave emphasis on the bravery of the indigenous people.
The thesis aimed to take the readers on different accounts of the Battle of Mactan, allowing them to see the battle from different perspectives, specifically the military perspective. It revealed the battle tactics of the opposing sides and gave details on how they fought in the battle. The book plays a crucial role in the academics for its intends to give further information in understanding a topic that has a very little information about. In fact, the only primary account of how the indigenous people lived back then was the original diary of Antonio Pigafetta, which was lost. The only copy we have now is the translated one. That's the amount of information we lost. In better understanding our roots, we become well aware of the facts we should establish for the future. This thesis engage reader in an in-depth look of the Battle of Mactan, encouraging for more researchers to take place in order to understand more about the battle. Throughout the thesis, the author used Antonio Pigapetta's primary account as the basis of the reality of war. On the first pages, Pigapetta's was accounted for a lot narratives along these lines, were secondary accounts commenting on the observations of Pigapetta's diary. The remarkable thing the author did was to discuss what happened through a primary source and discusses it further, giving the readers insights by accounting different secondary accounts. The author also did not stick on one account in narrating the story, preventing the narrative to be biased. For instance, on page 4. He personally led his small force despite the protests of his crew, Pigafetta 1969-87. He also brought Hornabon and some of his warriors to witness what was supposed to be a European victory, Hokano 1972-68. This is a good way to make the narrative insightful. He used an account from a Spaniard and from a Filipino as well.
The author introduced his topic and intentions very clear from the beginning. He mentioned how very little was known from the battle, including the way people fought and such. In this way, the readers could see the importance of compiling accounts to form a narrative that is unbiased and insightful. He was also very clear of where his thesis would go. He started by generally stating the events of the Battle of Mactan until he narrowed it down to his main discussion, the reality and discourse on warfare. To support his statements, he has included a conceptual framework from John Lynn in his book, titled Battle, year 2003. As he goes further in his discussion, he defined each terminology well before proceeding in supporting his claims. Another notable tactic of the author was imposing questions which provokes the reader's mind. For instance, on page 9, did the locals consider the Westerners as outside their political and spiritual world and thereby adopt unusual strategies to deal with the Europeans, or as a part of their spiritual and political system that had to be dealt with like any other aggressor. He did a great job in revealing his claims, but at the same time, preventing to spoon-feed every insight.
The author made a great deal of his compilations of accounts in insights. This gives convenience to the readers to easily read the accounts in one document. He also did a great job on summarizing his references in a quote that easily understood and contextually correct. Due to the clarity of the author that he is specifically tackling the military side of the Battle of Mactan, it, it's not necessary to point out that he missed details from the voyage round the world, because he covered that he said he will. He discussed military aspects that needs to be looked upon to such as weapons, shooting range and environmental warfare and battle tactics. In the end of his thesis he wrote, "It must always be remembered that warfare does not exist in a vacuum, and battles must be understood in their proper cultural and historical context, if they are to be of any value to the present or to the future." The author throughout the thesis gave emphasis on putting historical events in context and culture. This way, we can balance our insight on determining the purpose of the battle and why it ended like that. It is also an important reminder to be applied on other ventures of studying history. There are things that will only be understood if you place it in its respective and appropriate context. In this way, we can come close to recording history in a more accurate manner.